Good evening. Welcome to South Asia Newsline. I'm Surbhi Sharma. Here are the top stories we are tracking for you on Wednesday, the 3rd of October. Indian Prime Minister Modi receives UN's Champions of Earth Award. Pakistani Foreign Minister meets US Secretary of State in Washington to improve ties. And suicide bomber in Afghanistan targets election rally, at least 14 killed. And now for all the details, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi received the United Nations Champions of the Earth Award from the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres in New Delhi on Wednesday. Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron were jointly honoured with the award for their pioneering work in championing the International Solar Alliance. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi received the United Nations Champions of the Earth Award, UN's highest environmental honour, from the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in New Delhi on Wednesday. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron were jointly honoured with the award for their pioneering work in championing the International Solar Alliance and promoting new areas of cooperation on environmental action. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was selected in the leadership category for his unprecedented pledge to eliminate all single-use plastic in India by 2022.
क्लाइमेट और कैलेमिटी का कल्चर से सीधा रिश्ता है। क्लाइमेट की चिंता जब तक कल्चर का हिस्सा नहीं होती, तब तक कैलेमिटी से बच पाना मुश्किल है।
Many other leaders also recognize, also know, and also understand. The difference is that Prime Minister Modi not only recognizes, knows, and understands, but that he acts with enormous energy.
International Solar Alliance, or IAS, is an Indian initiative which was jointly launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Macron in November 2015 in Paris on the sidelines of the UN Climate Conference. It was considered a groundbreaking advance on the environmental front. From agriculture and industrial policies to building houses and construction of toilets, the need for a clean environment has been driving Modi government's programs. A huge cache of arms and ammunition was recovered after Indian security forces on Tuesday busted a militant hideout in India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province. India has long accused Pakistan of infiltrating armed terrorists to mount attacks on Indian soil.
Indian security forces on Tuesday busted a militant hideout in Doda district of India's northern Jammu and Kashmir province. Acting on a tip-off, a joint team of the Indian Army and Special Operations Group of the Jammu and Kashmir Police carried out raids in a forest area and busted the terror hideouts. A huge cache of arms and ammunition, including 2 AK-47 rifles, 3 magazines, grenades and several bullet rounds were recovered during the operation.
ये हाइड आउट हमने बर्स्ट किया है धन्नाधार जनरल एरिया देसा डोडा में। इसकी खबर हमें मिली थी और उस खबर के बेस पे हमने एक जॉइंट ऑप्स लॉन्च किया डोडा पुलिस के साथ इंडियन आर्मी ने, और हमें इसमें बड़ी कामयाबी मिली जिसमें कि हमने काफ़ी मात्रा में वॉर लाइक स्टोर्स रिकवर किए हैं और इस इलाके को सैनिटाइज किया है।
India has long accused Pakistan of arming and infiltrating terrorists across the border as proxy to mount attacks on Indian soil. Pakistan denies the allegations.
India's Supreme Court Judge Ranjan Gogoi took oath as the 46th Chief Justice of India on Wednesday, succeeding Deepak Mishra, who retired on Tuesday. President Ramnath Kovind administered the oath to 63-year-old Gogoi at a brief ceremony at the Presidential Palace in New Delhi. The appointment is in line with Mishra's recommendation this month, based on Gogoi's seniority as per common practice. Justice Gogoi was born in India's Assam province and is the first person from northeastern India to hold the post of Chief Justice of India. He will have a tenure of a little over 13 months and will retire in November next year. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi on Tuesday met US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Washington to improve ties. Relations between Islamabad and Washington have frayed since US early this year accused Pakistan of sheltering militants who staged attacks in Afghanistan.
Pakistani Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi on Tuesday met US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo in Washington to mend frayed ties between Islamabad and Washington. During the meeting, Qureshi stressed to Pompeo that peace in South Asia was a common goal of both the United States and Pakistan. He reiterated Pakistan's support for a political settlement in Afghanistan, saying use of force had failed to deliver results, a statement by Pakistan's foreign ministry said. Relations between uneasy allies United States and Pakistan have frayed in recent years, with Washington accusing Islamabad of sheltering militants who stage attacks in Afghanistan. Pakistan denies doing so. The Trump administration now wants the new government of Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan to adopt aggressive measures that blunt the influence of Afghan Taliban on the Pakistani side of the Afghan border.
Moving on, anti-Pakistan protests have intensified in Pakistan-administered Kashmir against the Neelum-Jhelum power plant project, which has been affecting the lives of locals. A massive water crisis has built up of late, which has forced the people to either live in uninhabitable conditions or move to other places. Anger against the local government and Islamabad has snowballed into a simmering outrage in Muzaffarabad city of Pakistan-administered Kashmir. The locals in the illegally occupied region are deprived of even drinking water as the river Neelum is drying up due to the construction of Neelum-Jhelum hydropower plant project. Locals led by traders and activists recently carried out protest and a shut-down strike against the administration, which they claim has acted against the interest of the common people.
सब आप लोगों से मेरी गुजारिश है कि इसको अपना जाती मसला समझें। ये है ही आप सब हर एक का जाती मसला है। ये आप अगर किसी के ज़हन में ये गलतफहमी है कि नीलम का पानी बंद होने के बाद और जो मिटिगेटिंग मेजर्स हैं वो किए बगैर मुजफ्फराबाद में जिंदगी पॉसिबल होगी, तो वो बहुत बड़ी हिमाकत का शिकार है।
Ever since the construction of the Neelum-Jhelum hydropower project, the river Neelum passing through Muzaffarabad appears as a storm water drain filled with sewage water. The project, which was built in the pretext of bringing prosperity, has deeply affected the lives of the common people, with many of them forced to migrate to other places in the country. In news from Afghanistan, at least 14 people were killed on Tuesday after a suicide bomber detonated his explosives at an election campaign rally in Afghanistan, Nangarhar province. Security officials have warned of the danger of such attacks during the campaigning for the upcoming parliamentary election, which began last week.
A suicide bomber blew himself up at an election rally in Afghanistan's eastern Nangarhar province on Tuesday, killing at least 14 people. Campaigning for the October 20 parliamentary election began last week, after which security officials warned of the danger of militant attacks during the campaigning. Meanwhile, the UN assistance mission in Afghanistan also expressed its concern around the level of violence early in the campaigning period. The mission condemned the attack that has also wounded several people.
موږ غوښتنه د دولت څخه هم دا ده باید موږ د غونډو امنیت ونیسي او په ضمن کې کاندانو څخه بیا هم غوښتنه کوم کله چې د خلکو امنیت نسي نیولی داسې غونډې نه دایروي خلک دې نه شهیدان خلک دې نه زخمیان کوي او د خلکو کور دې نه ورانوي.
The parliamentary election is seen as both a dry run for the more important presidential election next year and a test of the government's ability to provide security. Officials in Afghanistan acknowledged that sustained violence could delay the process if it proved unsafe for voters to go to polling stations.
More on news from Afghanistan. Afghanistan's Foreign Affairs Ministry has shown concern over the US-Russia confrontation in the country. Afghan Deputy Foreign Minister on Tuesday said United States and Russia's tension on Ukraine are moving towards Afghanistan, which will have negative repercussions for the country if they begin.
Afghan Deputy Foreign Minister Hikmat Khalil Karzai has said the United States and Russia's tensions on Ukraine are moving towards Afghanistan, which will have negative repercussions for the country if they begin. The remarks by Karzai were made while he was addressing an event on Afghanistan's foreign policy on Tuesday in Kabul city. US and Russia's tensions on Ukraine began as a dispute over trade agreement, but increased into the bloodiest conflict in Europe in early 1990s.
پر یوکرین اوس قرار د اختلافات افغانستان ته راځي هغه وخت کدا رقابتونه رسمي شروع شو بیا د افغانستان لپاره به یو ډیر بد حالت زموږ هدف باید دی چې بیرته د اجماع قوي کو او دغه اجماع بیرته راټول کو چې وسوم د افغانستان ثبات د روسیې د لپاره باید مهمه.
Karzai has been a main member of Afghans' delegation visits under the National Unity Government. According to him, Kabul should also not expect Russia to put pressure on Pakistan to help the Afghan peace process.
A Vietnamese Coast Guard ship on Tuesday arrived in India's southern Chennai coast to take part in a joint military exercise between the maritime forces of India and Vietnam. The exercise will focus on key security issues including anti-piracy, search and rescue operations.
As part of initiatives aimed at boosting cooperation between the maritime forces of India and Vietnam, a Vietnamese Coast Guard ship on Tuesday arrived in India's southern Chennai coast to take part in a joint military exercise. The ship CSB 8001 and its crew were accorded a traditional welcome by school children and Indian Coast Guards at the city's Chennai Port Trust. 3 ships, a helicopter and 1 dronier from the Indian side would participate in the joint military exercise with the Vietnamese Coast Guard ship.
We the first time come here and we see so the beautiful green and we prepare everything and already to combine with Indian Coast Guard for exercise on the sea.
Post that on 4th, we'll be sailing out in the morning at 10 o'clock for the joint exercise. And under the joint exercise, we would be exercising measures of anti-piracy, search and rescue, pollution control and firefighting.
The joint training exercise has been organized to strengthen cooperation between the two militaries and work on key security issues, including anti-piracy, search and rescue operations, pollution control and firefighting situations.
Germany has sanctioned a special grant of €40,000 for the restoration and preservation of the pristine glory of the ancient bridge on the famous Dal Lake in India's northern Srinagar city. The project aims to boost more tourism in the region.
With an objective of preserving the pristine glory of the 17th century old bridge in India's northern Srinagar city, Germany has sanctioned a special grant of €40,000 for the restoration of Und Kadal Bridge or Camel Hum Bridge. Germany's Deputy Ambassador to India and officials of Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage signed a memorandum of understanding for the restoration of the bridge in the famous Dal Lake earlier this week.
We think it has a positive impact, socio-economic impact for the local population, because each restoration project, each conservation project will need workers and restorers, so it has a positive impact on employment.
The preservation of this old historic treasure with us is that it gives us the continuity of civilization, and we want to leave something for the future generations, for the posterity.
The Und Kadal or the Camel Hum Bridge is a stone masonry bridge built in the late 1670s during the Mughal rule. The bridge, which has been an important part of the city's tourist spot Nishad Garden and Dal Lake, is expected to boost tourism in the region.
Well, that's all we have for you from South Asia this evening. Now our viewers can watch the show on SouthAsiaNewsline.com. You can also visit us on Facebook.com/SAsiaNewsline and follow us on Twitter @SAsiaNewsline. That's all in tonight's edition. We will see you same time tomorrow. Good night.